Hello and welcome to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson, and I have a very special guest today. His name is Stephen Anthony King, not to be confused with another Stephen King who also writes, but this Stephen King has a much more compelling story because it's a true life story and not a figment of somebody's imagination. And we are going to get the story straight from the brother's mouth. And I said brother, not a horse, because he is a brother and not a horse. Welcome to Open Door Live, Stephen.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here and just, be able to build with you.
Yes,
Thank you for the platform.
it's a pleasure to have you. And folks who know me know that one of my greatest joys in life is providing a platform for folks to tell their stories. And you have a very fascinating story. So we can start with that. But you just dropped a bombshell on me just a few moments ago. So give us the good news before we get started.
Well, hello to your listening audience. Hello, Cleveland. Hello, America. I am Stephen Anthony King. I am the author of the book titled It's Really Good to See You. And as of Monday, we just made Amazon #1 new release and Amazon #1 bestseller. So let's applaud. Let's applaud. Let's applaud.
I would give you a standing ovation, but people would see the blue jeans that are on under this jacket. But that's amazing. So the name of the book is It's Really Good to See You.
Correct.
Okay. And there is something built into that. So why don't we start with why you wrote this book and why it has that title?
Sure. There couldn't be a more proper title for the book. I was born very nearsighted with high myopia. Today, as I sit before you, I've had 14 eye operations. I only have sight in my left eye, and in 2017, that sight was threatened. I had a what's known as a macular hole. It's kind of like a pothole in your retina, and it affects your central vision. Now, up until that point, I already had 10 surgeries and no sight in my right eye. So I had lost some of my peripheral. So now if I lose the center of my vision in my good eye, and I don't have much peripheral, I'm pretty much left with nothing. So when I say and sit before you and say, it's really good to see you, I mean, it's really, really good to see you. It's not just, the standard greeting that we give people when we meet them. And it's a very interesting story. It's a story of perseverance. It's a story of never giving up. And it's a story of purpose. And the story within the story itself is my wife, my beautiful wife, Tina. We just made 14 years of wedded bliss, if you will, on May 26th. And, she really was my eyes when I couldn't see. So that's kind of a little bit background of the story. My entire life, I had visual challenges. And today I don't like to call them challenges. I like to call it being visually unique. I'm trying to take all the negative words out of my vocabulary. But it was, realistically, it was challenging. I made it though. I think it made me better because I had to work harder at sports. I had to work harder to drive. I had to work harder at work, seeing a computer, and I made it through. And I've really carved out a fairly good life and comfortable life for myself. I have my beautiful wife. We have 3 children. We have a lovely granddaughter and a host of friends and family that support me to the tilt. And, it's a really good story. It's a really, really good story, Vince.
As I read the press material, I was kind of struck by the fact that you have been able to accomplish so much, while having all of those challenges. Could you talk about what your life was like navigating the challenges of eyesight, but being so driven to be productive as a member of society?
Well, that's a great question. And it started out as a youngster growing up playing sports. I got teased a lot because I wore very, very thick glasses. And I made it a point to really be the best and beat people to try to compensate for being teased so much and having the thick glasses. So, believe it or not, I was the quarterback growing up.
Mm.
And we did pretty well. We won a couple of championships too. I played college basketball. And while in college, I got hit in the eye and that in my right eye with an elbow. And that really was the turning point because it caused me. I went up to Boston to have several surgeries to try to save the eye, and it just couldn't happen. And so, mid 80s, maybe 86, 87, I lost sight in my right eye. I'm just leaving college. Now I'm getting into the workforce, and I'm determined. And that determination started, or the seed was planted with sports. Growing up in Harlem, New York City, very competitive. When you're on the basketball court or the football field, there's a lot of trash talking. And I always had to be that much better because I pretty much was an easy target because of my vision. So it stood out, and it was positive peer pressure. Although it was teasing, I turned it into a positive for me, and I always wanted to be the best at whatever I did. So again, being a quarterback on a team, even as a young adult, playing in some of the semi-pro leagues around the city, I was the quarterback with only vision in one eye, if you could believe it. As I said, I played college basketball. So, that's where the drive came from, to be great, not just good, but to be great at anything that I set out to do. I always had a gift of gab. So I got into sales at a very, very young age. And sales is very competitive when you're in big sales rooms. There's all types of quotas, there's all types of incentives, there's all types of bonuses, and there's all types of egos. And my ego would tell me that your ego wasn't bigger than my ego. And so I've always been driven and in a competitive environment, and I think I've thrived in it. So it's. I think that's the origin of where I was able to get that drive from.
You mentioned your wife and the fact that you've been together for 14 years, and I'm just curious about how you all came together. She's probably been your greatest advocate.
Oh,
And so for someone to know that you have that challenge and to accept you and then to become your greatest ally is probably one of your greatest accomplishments in life. So could you talk about how you all came together and how it came about that she would be your champion?
it's a funny story, and that's another great question. I met her when she was 17 years old, and I was 24 years old. I had started my career in sales, and I was a telemarketing manager. And my wife and a couple of her friends came to be telemarketers. It's a pretty easy job when you're young and you don't have a lot of experience. It's not too hard to get hired. And I didn't pay any attention to her. She was 17 years old. I was the older, cute guy in the office. And a few years later, I would say about 5 years later, I was still working in Midtown Manhattan, and I bumped into this very attractive young woman. She's now about 22 years old. And I bumped into her in Midtown. We locked eyes, and we became really good friends from that point. So I've known my wife for about 25 years now. And so I can actually say, Vince, I married my best friend because we've been through a lot. She was in relationships. She would call and cry on my shoulder. I was in relationships. I would call and cry on her shoulder. We dated, we broke up, we dated, we broke up, and then we finally got together. So I can really say that I've married my best friend because she knows me better than any other woman on the planet, except for my mother, God rest her soul.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And I think I heard you say that you met her at 17 and then you reconnected with her at 24.
That's correct. That's correct. That's
A lot happens between the age of 17 and 24.
yeah.
So for you being the young man that you were at 31, seeing her at 24, were you pleased with the progress?
I was very pleased, extremely pleased. She was beautiful, first of all, which at that age for men is pretty much the first thing we zone in on. But then her personality matched her appearance. And she has the biggest heart. I tell her this all the time, that I've never had anyone love me the way she loves me unconditionally. And when we get into a little bit later about how hard she went for me when I was going through these challenges with the surgeries, you'll see I'm blessed. You know, the Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing." You know, I'm from Harlem, so he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. My mother is a retired registered nurse,
Mhm.
and my father was an Air Force veteran who was exposed to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War.
Vietnam, yeah.
So in the last years of his life, he was pretty much confined to a hospital bed.
Mm.
But my mother, God bless her soul, she was such an advocate for him. And she would say all the time, she would fight a gorilla
Hmm.
for my dad. And I'm just imagining that the magic that you have in your relationship is a similar type of magic. You are involved in this couples platform, and based on the success of your relationship, I imagine that you are also a really good role model to those that you provide counsel for. Could you talk about what you're doing within that realm?
Fantastic. Yes, I will. Thank you for that. Complete Chocolate Couples is our organization. And we created it, I'll give you the origin. We created it back in 2010 because we were married 3 years or so, 2.5, 3 years. And although we were very popular in our own rights and had a lot of friends, we just didn't have a lot of couples that were moving on the same path that we were. And I still had friends, my buddies who were single and doing what single men did, and she had friends who were single and doing what single women did. But we wanted to create a community or a tribe of couples that we could feed off of and build with. So we created this. I'm sure you've heard of Meetup.com. It's kind of an in-person Facebook where you meet up anything that you're into, any genre, any hobby you're into. They have meetup groups that you meet up and participate in activities. So we started this meetup group, and excuse me, it grew very, very quickly because we in a short period of time found out that there were a lot of people out there that were in a similar situation as us. They didn't have couple friends to hang out with. And when we would get together, there would be people that we would meet for the first time. And after about 20 minutes, it was like we knew each other for 20 years. And because we just had so much in common. And as we would sit around the table, dinner table, or bowling, or movies, or whatever, a conversation would always strike up. And that conversation would turn into a round table or a therapy session because one couple would talk about maybe a challenge just in jest in the beginning of what they were going through. And another couple would say, "Me too." And then, the third couple would say, "Me three." And the next thing you know, we're sitting down and we're sharing experiences. And for the couples that were just embarking on some of those challenges, there were couples there who had gotten through and were able to lend their experience and some of the techniques that they used to get through. So it was very, very therapeutic. And, it started out just as a couples group. And then my wife and I said, we need to take this to the next level based on those therapeutic sessions. So we both went and got certified as relationship coaches. And that really took off as well. And as you mentioned earlier, we have a solid relationship because of what we have studied, the techniques, the tools that we have studied for other couples. we use for ourselves, so it helps us. The more we give, the more we get. And from those two platforms, we birthed the radio show because we wanted to get the message out to folks other than in our local area, tri-state area, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York. And we started up a blog talk radio show, and we did very well with it. We ran it for about 5 years, and we talked all things relationship and not just the superficial stuff. We got deep. We got really deep. And I would bring on either experts or couples with experience in the topics. And I'm talking about cheating. I'm talking about Facebook, how Facebook can be a friend or a foe to people in relationships. We got into money, because nothing's sexy when the money is funny and the credit can't get it. We had some very, very, very interesting and necessary topics that most don't talk about but need to talk about, and we were able to bring light to it. So we've slowed down somewhat. We have a Facebook page with over 35,000 followers, Complete Chocolate Couples, the movement. So if you're out there and you're looking for some good positive information and energy about relationships, you can join our Facebook page. And Tina and I are, after we get finished with the campaigning of this book, we're going to sit down and write a book for couples as well.
Okay. So what kind of tools can you offer? You open up that bag and, we want to give people news that they can use or information that will further them in life. What kinds of tools can you offer them for success in their relationships?
Great question, Vince. Our whole platform is based off of universal spiritual principles, and we believe that any universal spiritual principle, the natural byproduct of that principle is harmony. And that's what we're all looking for in relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic, friendships, workships, whatever. What we're looking for, what we're striving for is harmony. And a lot of times we just don't know how to get it based on how we were raised, our love languages, things of that nature. But when you practice forgiveness, I'll give you an example. Forgiveness is a universal spiritual principle. It has no religious denomination on it. It has no ethnicity on it. It is just universal, and it applies to every human being. When I practice forgiveness, the natural byproduct that comes from that is harmony. When I practice compassion, when I practice empathy, when I practice love in its purest form, I get harmony. When I practice effort, full-fledged effort, I get harmony. And that's one of the things that we teach. Now, there's a whole kind of curriculum on how you go about that. But with relationships, what we find is the biggest culprit of people breaking up or getting divorced is they stop working on the relationship. They stop doing the things that they've done in the beginning that kept them feeling tickly inside. Those things kind of fade away and life comes around. If you're a young couple, you have children, and that takes up a lot of your time. So we teach people ways to really balance that out. Yes, the little ones take up a lot of time and energy, but you have to make time for yourselves. You have to make time to still date your partner, your spouse. And we teach you how to do that, along with effort. We get into long-term relationships and we get into these routines without really recognizing that we're in routines. I get up, I go to work, I come home. I'm a basketball fan, so Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, TNT, TBS, ESPN. I'm doing that. The wife may be on the phone with her friends. The next thing you know, it's 10, 11 o'clock. We go to sleep. We get up and we do the same thing all over again. So we teach couples and we use techniques as having kind of a where are we at night, a weekly kind of session where there's no TV, there's no kids, there's no interruptions, no phones, no social media, no anything. And we just figure out where we stand with each other. During the week, there may have been some tension. There may have been some insults or, something that was said or done that hurt my feelings. We set aside that time in a safe environment, not when we're yelling and screaming, because communicating at those levels is just not really practical, and it's not that effective. So, that where are we at night, it's a safe space, maybe some soft jazz, candle lights, whatever the mood, set the mood so everyone's relaxed. And whatever you're trying to express may come across in a softer, gentler manner. And if it's presented in a softer, gentler manner, it's more than likely received a lot better. People don't feel attacked, because once I feel attacked, then I'm going to get defensive. And the minute I become defensive, I'm no longer listening to what you're saying. I'm just waiting for my turn to speak so I can defend myself. And we also teach ways of presenting it. One of the ways I'll share with your audience is it's a lot better to express your feelings about something and how it made you feel rather than what your partner did. Because the partner can always defend their actions. They can't defend your feelings. They're yours. And however it made you feel, no one can take that away from you. So, it's indefensible, number one, and it doesn't put the person on the defense because they're feeling attacked. So those are just some of the techniques that we use.
Great information. As I listen to you, I just reflect on the idea that there's something called the 7-year itch. I don't
Mhm.
know if you heard of it,
Of
but
course.
it's that point when the chemicals wear off. So the oxytocin and the pheromones and all those other things that brought you together, they're not working anymore. So if you didn't build a foundation for success in your relationship after the chemicals wear off, then you're probably headed towards divorce. The other thing is that in many relationships and marriages, at a certain point, your partner feels like they're taken for granted.
Yes.
You were whining and dining her and buying her flowers and all of that, and you were doing everything that you could to woo her, and then you got her, or she got you, because it's really them that make the choice.
Really though.
you know but I've experienced it in my own relationship. You get comfortable and you're cool with everything, and they're saying, hey, I want to go to the movie, take me to a concert, take me out to eat, all those other kinds of things. And you have to be compassionate, you have to be understanding, you have to communicate, you have to be receptive to hearing how they feel. I'm reflecting on that whole Chris Rock routine where he says, yeah, right. You don't say, and you're not really listening, but you're giving her what she needs to give you the impression that you're on board with it. But it's just so important for your partner to be heard and to be appreciated, and not taken for granted. But then on the other side, and I can't speak from experience, but I don't have children, but I can understand how a man might feel neglected because he was the center of attention. He was the focus of her attention. And then the child comes and that attention shifts, and then his mind starts wandering, and she's tired because she's been dealing with the children's issues, and she might be working too. So, 8, 9 o'clock runs around, she's tired, and you sitting there saying, what about me? And she's like, I want to go to sleep. And then you get frustrated and things fall apart. So I think it's beautiful that you're in a position where you can help couples navigate their lives and learn from them, and they learn from you, and then move things forward.
You bring up some very, very, very important points. One is those chemicals that start to fade. It's very important to keep touch going and keep those chemicals alive as much as possible with the romance, with the things that makes your wife, feel all warming and giddy inside. And we actually have constructed a relationship inventory, a daily relationship inventory, because as time goes on, we kind of fall into ruts And the things that we used to do in the beginning, they're no longer at the forefront of our consciousness because we're now in a relationship. For men, there's no longer a need to hunt, right? Which we all get a thrill from because we've gotten the person that we want, and we start to get a little lazy and complacent with those little sweet things. Maybe that text just in the morning to say I love you, or you're looking beautiful, or I'm still thinking about you from last night, or the card that you send in the mail, you know, unexpected for the woman to open, or anything, whatever it is. Those things start to slip away when the rigors of life come in: bills, work, children, so forth and so on, illness. So we have created a relationship inventory daily, and it's great pillow talk. It's a series of about 20, 25 questions that, you know, at the end of the night when the kids are in bed and you guys are in bed together and you're just laying there and about to fall asleep, you do this inventory. And what it does is bring back to the forefront of your consciousness things that you may have forgotten. Vince, you'll be surprised how many people don't compliment their partners on a daily basis. As simple as, honey, you look nice, you look beautiful today, or honey, you look handsome today. You know, and especially for women, you know, if a woman is in love, all those compliments that they hear in the street will fall on deaf ears. They want to hear it from us, the man, first and foremost. And if we don't do that, sooner or later, those compliments are going to start penetrating that she hears in the street. You know, not saying all, and not saying that they're going to act on them, but they're going to start sounding very nice. And what happens is they're going to start getting resentful that they're not hearing it from their mate as much as they do in the street. So little things. Did I compliment my partner today? Did I tell my partner I love them today? And what it does is spark your memory. Wow, I didn't say it today. But now it's at the forefront of my consciousness. So tomorrow, I'm more likely to say I love you or give my wife a compliment. You know, do I owe my wife an apology today? You know, did I hurt her feelings, even in jest? You know, little things, you know, because we can get into routines where we're ribbing and joking and on our partner. And, you know, both men and women are sensitive, and we may laugh along, but it may have caught a vein, as we say in Harlem, or hit, you know, struck a note that really deep down, wow, that hurt my feelings. So it kind of reminds you of things that you're doing on a daily basis. You're really taking an inventory of your attitudes and behavior with your partner on a daily basis. And you're constantly adjusting, constantly adjusting, constantly adjusting. Because as humans, forget about, you know, partners or spouses, as humans, we are evolving constantly. So there's no way that I can possibly think that how my relationship was 14 years ago, it's going to remain the same. Because no, we're evolving. Like you say, women, you know, they have to now deal with the kids. So now I have to adjust to that. And maybe, honey, let me take the kids for a couple of hours. Or on Saturday, honey, the day is yours. You're going to relax. I'm going to take the kids and give her a break, you know, not just expect her to, you know, take on kids and still give me the attention that she did before I had the kids, to the point you made. So there are a lot of little tips, and they're not very difficult. They're very simple techniques that if you apply, they can help your relationship sustain that level.
Yeah. Another key factor is gratitude.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, that's so important. And this is another tip for the brothers. Foreplay is not just right before you engage. Foreplay starts when you make that suggestion. Foreplay starts when you leave that note on the counter.
Yep.
Foreplay starts, you know, long before it. And if she's not good in terms of where things are in the relationship, it's not gonna work. You're not gonna have the, you know, the fireworks and all of that. So just another thing to consider, brothers, when you consider your relationships with sisters. I want
Yes.
to shift gears and talk about some of the other lanes that you're traveling in because you are also a talk show host. You have a great voice for it. You have a great presence for it.
Thank
How
you.
did your lane of being a talk show host get engaged?
From a young age, Vince, my friends always told me I never met a mic I didn't like. I tell you, when I was, I think about 8 or 9 years old, there was a famous radio disc jockey here in New York. His name was Ken Spider Webb, and he was on WBLS here in New York City. And at that young age, I knew that I wanted to be in front of a mic. I actually wrote him a letter. And, to my surprise, he actually read the letter on air. He was a morning DJ, and I was getting dressed to go to school. I'll never forget it. I'm reliving it as we speak. And he read my letter on air, and I said literally, when I grow up, I want to be a radio DJ like you. So all throughout my young years, I was an MC during the hip hop era. I always hosted events. I was always that guy to grab the mic and very comfortable in front of the crowd. So when we got this opportunity to not only share insight or relationship techniques with people, but it gave me a chance to live out one of my childhood dreams, and it was phenomenal. And I loved it. I loved it. I still love it. I still love it.
Yeah. I have quite a few conversations with people because I'm in the storytelling business, and so many people tell me that they wanted to get to New York. So people leave Cleveland in pursuit of their dreams. They get to New York. They find out that New York is it's overwhelming. It's expensive. It's
Yeah.
all these things. You're actually the reverse of that story. You're someone who has existed and survived in New York. Talk to us about what it's like to navigate, the Big Apple, the big metropolis that is really kind of like the real capital of America.
It's really is survival of the fittest. And growing up, not just in New York, but in Harlem, I fell prey and became a product of my environment. Everywhere you go, there's drugs, there's guns. You're either using drugs, you're selling drugs, or you're playing sports. Those are, unfortunately, there are other outlets, but those are the dominant ones. At least back when I was growing up, it's changed tremendously since then. And you dib and you dab in a little bit of everything, and really it's only through God's grace and my mother, who was my rock, that I made it out and I didn't become a statistic. I did fall prey. I fell prey to drug addiction. I'm now 23 years clean and sober. I dabbled in the drug game, in the gun game, and only through God's grace am I here, because I have been in some situations that it could have gone the other way and we wouldn't be here having this fantastic conversation. So you do have to navigate, but on the positive, it gives you that street smarts, that intangible that going to the best university can't give you. You know, you have this kind of sixth sense or this spidey sense, and when something's not right, and how to hustle a little bit, and how to haggle, and how to negotiate in the street, and how to really put on that facade and fake it until you make it. Plenty of times I've put up an image and given people the perception that I was somebody I wasn't, just to get in circles. And once I got in the circles, I made my way. So, I wouldn't change it at all. Everything that I've gone through, I've grown through, and I'm a better person because of it. Yes.
Okay. I want to get back to this great book that you've written because that's obviously what brought us together. And
Yes.
just talk to you a little bit about the genesis of the book and the process that you had for getting it done.
It was a very intriguing process. I still have trouble calling myself an author. I look at myself as a person who had a tremendous story of hope and perseverance, and I just wanted to get it out to the masses. I'll tell you, I knew I was going to write the book in 2018. I was going to one of my post-operative appointments with my doctor, and he said to me, "Steve, I think we finally got you out the woods." And I was overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude. And I knew at that point that I couldn't keep this testimony to myself. And we'll get into a little bit later of all that I went through in the book and during that time, 2017 to 2018. But I knew at that time that I was going to write the book. And I just didn't know where to begin. And then it hit me. Our mutual friend, Yvette, who is the CEO and founder of the African American Literary Awards. And, you know, Yvette and I go back to teenage house parties. And I called her up and I asked her, you know, to kind of guide me or put me in touch with someone who can guide me, hold my hand, and mentor me through this process. And she happened to put me with one of the most phenomenal women in the world. Her name is Victoria Christopher Murray. And she's been in the game over 25 years. Lifetime just made two film adaptations of her books, and they aired in April. One was called Lust, and one was called Envy. So I really had a good mentor and a good coach by my side to walk me through the process. And I'll tell you, Vince, writing the book is really the easy part. I was very naive in the beginning. I thought once I get this book out, which was a task in and of itself, but once I got it out and got it all on paper and had this manuscript, I thought I arrived. And that was really just the beginning. Now you have to go through several editing processes, then formatting processes, just a whole host of things on the back end, the business of getting the book published. And you have to make sure that you're with the right people, because there are some unscrupulous people out there who will prey on the folks who don't know really what they're doing. They'll take your money, they'll take your work. And you don't know that you yourself have to purchase certain items to make sure that you have all the rights to your work. And I've heard some horror stories, from folks who trusted people and they didn't pan out to be very trustworthy people. But it was an exciting ride, and I'm still learning, because even after you get the book published, the harder work begins in hustling and getting people to know you have a book. Otherwise, it's just good conversation at dinner parties. But my goal is to really get the book out there. As I said, I just reached #1 bestseller this week, and #1 new release. And that takes getting out there and hustling, connecting with good folks like you who give us opportunities to tell our stories. And it never really ends. But I love this because, again, going back to what I said, as I was a child, I never met a mic I didn't like. So speaking about my story and just speaking in general to masses, I love to do. So this is fun for me. I don't consider this part work.
Okay, so I noticed you have a website, www.itsreallygoodtoseeyou.com.
Yes,
But
sir.
you also mentioned being on Amazon and being a bestseller on Amazon. Now, I'm in the book game too. I got a book on Amazon, and I know that Amazon takes a huge chunk
Yes.
of what you generate from your sales. So I want to encourage people to visit your website,
Yes.
as opposed to visiting Amazon.com to get your book. So if you want to
Appreciate
put that plug out there, please do.
Yes. The website is very, very simple. It's really good to see you.com. Plain and simple.
Yes, yes, yes. And finally, just tell us how life has changed for you since you've been able to make this accomplishment and get the word out about what you've been through and how you got to where you are now.
It's exciting, Vince, I'll tell you, because I'm living out my dream. I've been in sales for over 30 years, and I'm in sales management. I'm a VP of sales, and it's a challenging. I got to say, I'm getting a little burnt out. I'll be quite honest with you, and what I'm just trying to see. The sunlight is getting. The lighting is changing. Lord,
Yes.
forgive me. What I was saying is that I'm living out my dream. I put a lot of effort and a lot of man hours into my corporate position. And now I'm working hard. Don't get it twisted. I'm working very, very hard, but I'm working for myself. And there's just, at the end of the night, I'm exhausted. I work from home, and that's a gift and a curse because I wind up working more hours from home. I'm up working at 8, and sometimes I don't finish till 1, 2 in the morning. I'm exhausted but exhilarated at the same time because I know I'm planting seeds for my own harvest and not to make somebody else wealthy. So it's very exciting for me. Very exciting.
And really, it's important for folks to know that they have those kinds of opportunities. The American way is go to school, get a job, work for somebody till you can't work for any longer, and then hope that you have enough saved up to be able to live the rest of your life. And by the time you get to that point, it's over.
Correct.
So I think in a large way, we have to kind of rethink this process. And as we have this conversation, there's a massive transfer of wealth that's taking place.
Yes.
We're seeing a transformation of the economic and financial systems on the globe. There's this thing called cryptocurrency. And
Yes.
there are these things called non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and artists
NFTs.
are moving towards those kinds of things. And everyday people are now getting the opportunity to invest in artists. And with those kinds of investments, you can walk away from that 9 to 5 that keeps you so locked down that after you give up that 40 hours, you don't have any energy to do anything else. So
Do anything else?
yeah, I applaud you for making that choice, and just again reflecting on a couple of other clients that Yvette has that she sent my way. They have this luxury eyewear brand called Vontel,
Yes.
and Miss Vontel, I'm giving you her middle name because that's what the company is named after. She was a CFO for a hospital.
Wow.
And this hospital was really impacting her health in a negative way, so much so that she had to step away from it. But she stepped away from that and she stepped towards herself and doing the things that have empowered her to be able to live successfully and navigate life away from the plantation, so to speak.
Yes.
So my prayer for you is that at some point you can step away from what's not rewarding for you and step into being you, doing you on a full-time basis and accomplishing everything that you endeavor to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. I appreciate that. And it's so funny, to your point, COVID, and my prayers go out to all those who lost a loved one or who even contracted COVID and went through the horrors that it put people through. But it was a gift and a curse. It allowed me to start working from home. I started working on this book at the beginning of 2019. And again, putting in 12 to 14 hours every single day at, my corporate job. By the time I got home, I had forget about physical energy. I had no mental energy to put into the book. But once we started working from home, it gave me the time to really devote to it. And I finished in about 6 months what took me almost a year and a half to try to finish up until that point. So yeah, I'm making that transition slowly but surely, and I'm enjoying it. I really enjoy it, and in a crazy type of way, it makes me want to work even harder. Like I want to finish things, even if it's at 2 in the morning, because I know I'm doing it for myself, and I know that there's going to be a harvest that comes of it, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with all that said, what's next for Stephen Anthony King?
Well, I'm also involved with Les Brown. Les Brown wrote the foreword to my book, and I apologize for the sunlight, Vince. My apologies for that. Les Brown wrote the foreword to that book, and I am a proud member of the Les Brown Academy called Hungry to Speak. So I'm sharpening my public speaking skills, and we actually have an event coming up, a virtual event coming up this Saturday called It's Possible. And it's if you go to hungrylegacy.com, tickets are free. And it's a dream come true for me once again to be able to share the stage with one of the world's greatest motivational speakers, Mr. Les Brown. So speaking engagements are starting to come. The following week, I'll be in Atlantic City at a Juneteenth event at the Showboat Hotel. That's a live event, and you know that's my ultimate goal, to go on a book tour as the world starts to open back up and the United States starts to open back up. Go on a in-person book tour as well as public speaking events. That's my goal.
Okay. Well, you know, there are 6 degrees of separation, they say. I happen to think there are probably only 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Someone who was a part of my life, someone who is actually a kind of a daughter of sorts, is also connected with Les Brown.
Huh.
And her name is Imani Capri. I'm going to shout out Imani. What's up,
Okay.
Imani? Hopefully she'll see this. But Imani somehow connected with Les Brown. As a matter of fact, something happened and I found out something that Les was doing, and I told her about it. And after I told her what I told her, she made the connection. And now she's somebody that's involved in the same network of people that you are. So
Yeah.
again, it's just so rewarding to see how things come together, the synchronicity in life, and just to know that there are folks out there like you who are in a position to motivate people and to get them pointed in the direction of some type of success that will be beneficial in their lives. Brother, it has been a complete pleasure and
Thank
honor
you,
to have
brother.
this conversation with you. And I'm hopeful that you sell another 1,000,000 copies of that book, and then come out with another one that does exactly the same thing and empower others to overcome adversity as you have.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'll close by saying it's really good to see you, my brother.
Yes. And as you say that, I will say the same thing. It's good to see you, brother, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you, my friend. Peace and
Blessings
blessings.
and prosperity to you.
Peace.
All right.